The following is a fan-based discussion. All properties discussed are property of Toei Inc., Bandai, Hasbro, and Subaru Productions.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Welcome back to Tokutalk. This time we're going to do a little something different, which is sort of like our decade of reviews, but we're going to focus on storytelling this time. From the 70s, mostly through the 90s, because there is a dramatic shift after that point. 70s, 80s, and 90s, we're going to focus on how they told their stories in the Toku that we've watched so far. So, no Showa Ultra. We don't really know how those work.
Not yet, at any rate. We might get around to it at some point.
Fact of life. But yeah, what is something that you noticed about how the stories have worked from the shows that we have done so far through the 70s to the 90s?
Wow. Putting me on the spot.
Yes.
One of the big things is how we have gone from... It goes from, utter melodrama in its simplest form to stories that are a bit more complex. Not to say that they are, great prestige dramas with, lots of themes and lots of things, but you have, multiple factions, each with their own characters, each their own personalities, and they are more involved.
Yes.
Whereas you look at, what is the oldest show that we reviewed for Tokucast? Any idea? Is it Battle Fever?
No. We've done V3.
V3, which is, yeah, that's true. That and also, because I think about the older stuff that we've watched, the ones that I've been around for at least, and it very much is just melodrama distilled to its purest form. And there isn't a lot of room for moral complexity.
Yeah.
Or any kind of moral gray area whatsoever. It is heroes who are doing good because it is the right thing to do, and because if they don't, then the bad guys will kill us all.
Yeah.
And the bad guys are, I am bad is good, therefore I am good, let's go smash a bunch of stuff.
Now that does start to transition the further we go along. I'm going to say Go-Go 5 is the end point, because that was 99.
Okay.
That's sort of the end point for that one. But like I said, the starting point, I want to talk about sort of the way that the episodes were set up, where they are episodes, because they certainly are episodic. And the way that, up until when Dynaman came on, after a couple weeks when that time slot got changed, and they got to have shorter episodes, they're just we're just going to pack plot. We're actually going to have a plot now, instead of having... this thing happens, and then this thing happens with no real consequence. There's no holdover for a lot of these episodes, and I like how they started to switch that up as the show starts going along. Like V3, yes, that show is great, but it is very, very episodic in its structure. And we talked about episodic versus story-driven versus a blend of both before, but it's something I was noticing. I'm just there is no holdover from anything that's happened before. Which I think is both a good thing, and this might be a sign of the times. Good Prince album, by the way. From what had happened up until just all right, we want these people to be a lot more involved with watching the show on a week-to-week basis to make sure that we're getting the commercial time, make sure we're actually using our time well. So they started adding...
Selling that merch.
Yes. They started adding plot to make sure that people tuned in every single week to see exactly what's going to happen next as, a follow-up from the week before. And
I think a big part of what changed is just the things that we could do in the real world changed. Because you look at, back in the 70s and 80s, you could go outside and play. You could play sports, depending on,
We did that in 2019, too.
But, in terms of, what you were limited to. Going outside and playing sports, playing with your friends. Depending on the era of video games, were starting to become a thing. Going to an arcade, maybe going to the movies. But as far as entertainment at home, books, TV...
Radio.
Toys, radio... You didn't have as many things vying for your attention, so there wasn't a huge amount of competition in terms of what was vying for your attention at home. So you didn't have to compete as much.
That is a worldwide thing that happened because there was a pretty dramatic shift once the home console really became a thing. But they really wanted people to, as I said, we want you to watch. So Dynaman comes around and it's just like, here's a character that's going to be a little bit more morally gray with how the show goes forward. And I feel like, at least from the ones that I've witnessed, that's more the turning point, at least for Toku. It's just, we're finally going to have not so clean heroes. We're finally going to have not so dirty villains. To just give a little bit more moral complexity to the shows that we were watching. There might be a lot more outside forces, maybe some censorship laws changed or something in the background. The Hays Code finally went out of effect in the U.S. Hays Act. Hays Code?
Hays Code.
Hays Code. So it's just, we finally get to see something a little bit more dramatique on television at the time. I don't know if Japan had a similar, Hays Code adjacent thing that was happening.
There was like the censorship that was put into effect after World War II.
Yeah.
And then, that got lifted and we had that explosion of creativity that happened as a result.
Really didn't help. That's how we got all these shows in the first place. That's how we got Godzilla and everything that's come after that. So it's very, very interesting to see how the stories changed as we went further along. You can go for something like V3 where the bad guys are bad. That's it. Even with Stronger, you have sort of a hero who's a little bit more of an asshole. And I think that's something that they definitely carried over when they pretty much remade the character for Kabuto. But Stronger wasn't that good. But I really appreciated what the hero did. The hero was very different from anything that we had seen before. And even watching Metal Hero now, we just finished Just Beyond. That was the last thing that we did. So we haven't gotten to Spielbahn yet. But watching the ones that we've done now, it's interesting to see as time went along how the main characters changed. I am not the biggest fan of squeaky clean. I really am not. It's sort of boring.
The pure good hero.
Yeah. And this is also why I really like V3, because V3 was an angry man. 12 angry men all wrapped up in one writer. He was a very angry person. And that
$6 million angry man.
Yeah, it drove him a lot in that show. His own personal anger, his want for revenge, and things like that. And I think that's the thing that really helped me like V3 as much, because Hiroshi Miyauchi played that character almost exactly like I just like characters like that.
Yeah.
He still has, his own morals and things, but that anger will sometimes overwhelm him.
You like your heroes to have a little bit of an edge.
Yes. Not so much
doing the right things, not entirely for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Usually for selfish reasons.
And sometimes,
in the case of this.
But at the same time, it's like they will, at the end of the day, always know doing the right thing.
I was gonna say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that something? I was gonna say, is that something you'd like to see?
It's like,
can you think of other examples of that have changed throughout the years? You think, specifically in the time period we're talking about,
between the 70s to the 90s. Joe from Live Man when he saved Go, because he was doing it really, to help his friend and stuff, but the way that Go ended up working, where he turned against everybody else, even though they more or less turned on him at the beginning, it's just like seeing him work towards getting to that point where he doesn't want to be the bad guy anymore because everybody else has done him so wrong. And he thought that he did everything he could to prove that he was bad, but it didn't work. His mother was also terrible, as we saw on that show. Live Man was a good example of this. It's good having complex characters like that and complex villains. We didn't have a lot of complex villains up until the mid to late 80s. Change Man was, at least for me, because I haven't really seen Dynaman all the way through, that sort of turning point where Shima and the others were all under Bazoo.
Knew you were going to bring Shima up.
Yes, because Shima kick. But it's so interesting watching these older shows, and I'm happy that we're going back and going to do Go Ranger and Rider to see really where they started, to see how these tropes really started. I like seeing the bad cop. That's what they sort of get to be sometimes.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're always going to go and do the right thing. Sometimes you just need the bad cop to do the bad thing so the good cop can actually do the good thing. I like the dichotomies and things like that. Do you have anything?
As far as examples or whatnot that stick out in terms of...
Examples, yeah.
Oh boy. The one that really sticks out to me is Live Man. In terms, I mean, we bring it up a lot on this show, but that's because it's very good, and I think it does stand out as a great example of what you can do with characters and storytelling in Toku, especially for the time. Because to me, Live Man, you do see that you have that moral complexity with its villains.
Yeah.
It feels like a great shift away from I am bad, bad is good, therefore I'm good, into they truly believe what they're doing is right.
Yeah.
They truly believe, like, as scientists and like as everything that they've come to learn from their schooling up to now, we are truly creating with Bia-sama the next evolution. We are going to create a better, brighter world using what we're doing. And and it's that ideal that they strive for, that they sacrifice their own humanity for, that I think really gives Live Man the edge in terms of what it has done with villains. Because I think about the reviews that I was there for prior to that, and it is just, they're bad guys doing bad things. They're just here to wreck shop and take over the world.
Yeah. I think the thing that...
Which there's nothing inherently wrong with, as long, good story is a good story, good characters are good characters, regardless of how simplistic it might seem.
One thing that I think sort of has made its way to now, even, is for the main characters to experience some sort of loss. And, there is just the one thing that sort of sticks out to me is Black. Where, lost his brother at the beginning.
Yep.
Brother turns out to be the bad guy, and then he has to kill his brother. And that's really the driving force of that entire show. It's like the loss of so much for Black. It just permeates his character.
The loss of that, but also, like, Black loses a bit of himself because of the experiments that were done to him, and because he was changed from, regular man into what became Kamen Rider Black.
Yeah.
There is that, like, dealing with I love the opening of the first episode where it's just like him, like, running through the noisy streets of Tokyo at night. And
it's very expensive.
It's very expensive, but it's also very good. It's very well shot, and just like the camera is so disorienting, and the sounds are very loud and they sound very exaggerated, and you can just like see the fear and the confusion in his eyes of just like, who am I, where am I, what's going on, and as things are pieced together, and he has to come to grips with losing who he is as a person. Well, as in, I haven't seen it yet, but one of my bold predictions for Kamen Rider when we watch it, Kamen Rider Ichigo, I don't know that they're going to touch on that much. That is a prediction I'm going to make right here and now.
Maybe. Yeah, probably I feel over 90 episodes.
Could they? Yeah, but I feel like it, you put your mindset in a kid watching that in late 70s. When that started, early 71. Wow, jeez. When that started airing, and you think like, oh, I'm a cyborg now and I have superpowers. That's just cool.
Factual. Yeah.
Mm.
We haven't really talked that much about the 90s. I mean, I feel like...
I think the 90s, because in 89, we had Jetman.
91.
Was it 91? But either way, like it was the end. It was the end of the end of Showa, beginning of Heisei.
That was Live Man, which was.
But 89 is when it ends, and then like we're starting to get into something new. Jetman happens, and that is like some of the most
melodrama.
Melodrama, but also like some of the deepest character depth that we've seen from heroes in Sentai, and I don't know, has it been matched since? Who knows?
That's a good point. We did not get in the 70s and the 80s, at least not until the late 80s, the heroes to want something. And I think, usually ambition was always on the side of the villains because the heroes were a lot more reactionary.
Mm-hmm.
But then you end up getting to really Jetman. It's like, Guy wants something.
Mm-hmm.
Kaoru wants something. Red Hawk wants something. And I think that's the thing that sort of separated, especially because it went from Soda, who was the writer for pretty much everything up to Five Man, to Inoue coming in with his first show with Jetman, where he's just like, you know what, we're going to actually make the heroes want something this time around.
Going to make them want something, because he looked around at what was going on and like saw what J-dramas were doing at the time, what romantic dramas were doing at the time, and he's like, why don't we take some of this and pull that into this and put that onto our characters and see how that plays out. And I think it worked out great.
And it even plays into, especially something like Die Ranger, with the way that story structure is set up, where it's just like, yeah, we have the main story going on, but pretty much everybody else in that show has something going on at the same time. So I wish I would bring that back, where it's not so much a linear story. But
getting back to what I was saying about about Jetman, I think with Zyuranger, they tried to go back to that more squeaky clean hero archetype, because you look at the Zyurangers and they are just like they're dinosaur dudes,
fish out of water dinosaur humans who come from a fantasy land where humans and dinosaurs coexisted, and now they're here to fight a witch from space and her singing entourage, and it is much more silly and fantastical, especially when you compare Machiko Soga did beforehand.
Yes, and it feels like bit of a downgrade.
Yeah,
it feels like a dumbing down compared to what they did just the year before.
It's like it's the one in between the two. Zyuranger is the one in between the two, at least to us. So it's just
because like think when I think about again what I've reviewed for this channel, what I've seen for this channel, and that gap there is like, well, what if we tried going back to how it was before? And it's just like, ew. You maybe could have done it, but it doesn't work. Because I think, again, we flash forward to Kira Major, my favorite Sentai, where it does do that back to basics thing, but it also gives its characters wants and hopes and dreams, and it gives them interesting personalities, and it gives the villains are interesting, and it's fun and colorful and exciking and
good. But the
way
that Zyuranger did is just like, we're going to put pretty much all of our eggs into the basket known as Dragon Ranger. That's where all of our eggs
that's where the only like moral complexity or gray area comes at all is from the Dragon Ranger.
Yeah.
And he didn't last.
No, they killed him off. So just like, well, okay.
And I think one of the things that separates a back to basics approach from Zyuranger as opposed to Kira Major is with Zyuranger, it feels like they didn't try and take those storytelling elements from the Showa era and update them, because that's one of the things that Kira Major did marvelously. Was it took that back to basics approach, and it's like, let's rework this for a modern context. And I think that's just that great script is what really elevated Kira Major for me.
A lot of the things, at least for me, that made a lot of the Showa era very different. I really miss. It could be the ordinances and stuff, but when like the heroes would be in a place or like at a club or in disguise or inside a building doing more spy work. I really loved and appreciate when they do stuff like that, where they're not going to be fooled by bad person. I remember there was one episode of Just Beyond where he recognized Gilza and Gil Marzan, and she had a toy baby or something that tried to kill him with needles that happened near the end of the show.
Yeah.
And he recognized her, was going to attack her, and then she started screaming because she was in disguise.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I sort of miss when there was a little bit more innovation into getting into places. Go Busters did it because Enter was in disguise quite a bit. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the 90s and the 70s and the 80s. And this is something that I feel like they've lost a little bit of that storytelling element as they've gone along, where it's just, we have these fantastical beasts and where to find them in this club and whatever. But we've sort of strayed away from that as things have gone forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I can understand that because it was like almost every single show that we watched in the 80s. Like, they had several episodes like that.
Mm.
Rider had several episodes like that. Metal Hero, several episodes. Sentai, several episodes. They were all pretty much, following that thing. But it was also very interesting to watch them because it was just, this is not something that we're going to see every time.
Mm.
I liked seeing when the story was really, was really normal.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of doing something like, we're going to raise this monster from this place and steal its egg to make it do bad things for us.
Mm-hmm.
I like it when they go a little bit more normal and try to work within the real world context that they're in and try to work the fantastic into that instead of just going strictly fantastic.
Mm.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
No, I think that'll wrap it up.
Okay. Well, I think this was an interesting one, this Tokutalk, because it was just something I really noticed while, just to be honest, spawned a couple of ideas in my head for videos. So I noticed. Just like, well,
here we are.
But yeah, let us know what you think about storytelling during this time period. How things went along, how villains changed, how heroes changed, how motivations changed, how the technology really changed during this time to really reflect on what they could do with certain things. Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to join us for all the things, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching.